Welcome to Around the Globe, a place where we bring you information and facts about the globe. You will learn a lot here. Please hit that subscribe button and you will learn more. Today's topic is the first cars of the world's most famous car makers. Stay to this end of the video and see the first car that was produced by Tesla. Some have humble beginnings and some have rather extravagant ones. The origins of more than 50 car makers are charted here. Carl Benz created the first automobile in 1885, and countless more businesses have since emerged in an effort to establish themselves. However, very few have survived, and in this article, we examine some of those survivors. Though some businesses claim to have developed two first cars, sometimes things are far more complicated than you may imagine. 1. Mercedes-Benz 1886. This is where it all started. The first company to build a car. Carl Benz built his first car in 1885 and he patented it in January 1886, but the Mercedes name wouldn't be adopted until 1901. That first car had just 3 wheels and a 0.75 horsepower 954cc single-cylinder engine. But in 1893, Benz built his first four-wheeler, the Victoria, powered by a 3-horsepower 1745cc engine. 2. Peugeot 1891. Peugeot first made salt and pepper mills in 1842, then 40 years later switched to manufacture bicycles. The company's first automobile, a 4-wheel device with a rear-mounted V-twin engine and chain-driven rear wheels, was produced by Peugeot in 1891. In the initial year, only 5 automobiles were produced. In 1892, this number increased to 29. Peugeot's annual production capacity increased to 500 automobiles by 1900. 3. Ford 1896. In 1896, Henry Ford produced his first prototype automobile. The vehicle, also known as the Ford Quadricycle, would never be produced again. Ford founded the Detroit Automobile Company in 1899, which was later renamed the Henry Ford Company in 1901. Ford and his financial backers had a falling out within a year, and in 1903, he left to found the Ford Motor Company, a new business. 4. Renault 1898. After constructing a 1CV Voiturette prototype the year before, Louis Marcel and Fernand Renault founded Société Renault Freres in 1899. The Type A, a 32-kilometer-per-hour vehicle, received annual updates until it was phased out of production in 1903, at which point a 5-horsepower engine replaced the vehicle's original 1-horsepower engine. 5. Fiat 1899. In 1900, the Fabbrica Italiana di Automobili Torino was established, and only 24 automobiles were produced in that year. The 4-horsepower, the brand's first model, debuted with a 679cc flat twin engine. Following models received an 837cc one. Fiat began with just 35 workers. By 1908, it had 2,700 employees and was able to produce 5,000 automobiles annually. 6. Opel 1899. Adam Opel founded a business in 1862 to produce sewing machines before expanding into the bicycle industry in 1886. After his death in 1895, his widow and 5 sons carried on the business, launching their first automobile in 1899. Customers could choose between 2 or 4-seat versions of the car, which had a 1,545cc 3.5-horsepower single-cylinder engine. However, sales of the car were poor. Just 11 were sold in 1899 and 24 in 1900. Opel was a component of General Motors from 1931 until it was sold to PSA in 2017. 7. Buick 1899. Buick, the oldest still operating automaker in America, was established in 1899, the same year it manufactured its first vehicle. However, it didn't build its second vehicle until the following year, and its third one wasn't produced until 1903. Series manufacturing didn't begin for the Buick Autovim and Power Company until 1904. A year later, the business changed its name to Buick Motor Company. This first automobile, the Model B, had a 2,605cc flat twin engine that produced 16 horsepower. Buick sold 37 automobiles by the end of the year, but by 1908, annual production had exploded to 8,800. 8. Oldsmobile 1901. Ransom, before introducing his first production automobile in 1901, the witty named Oldsmobile Curved Dash Runabout, which featured a 1,565cc single-cylinder engine, a 2-speed gearbox, and chain drive. Illy Olds constructed a number of experimental and prototype vehicles in the late 19th century. Despite what Ford may claim, Oldsmobile was the first to market a mass-produced automobile, with 425 runabouts coming off the assembly lines in the first year, increasing to 2,100 in 1902. 9. Cadillac 1902. Henry Leland founded Cadillac in 1902 with the goal of producing inexpensive automobiles for the general public. His first model was the Runabout, later known as the Model A, which underwent a facelift in 1904 to become the Model B. A 1,609cc single-cylinder engine installed under the back seat produced 10 horsepower in total. 10. Ford 1903. The Model A was the first item produced by the Ford Motor Company. It went on sale in July 1903, and by the time it was finished in October 1904, an astonishing 670 units had been produced. Bill Ford Jr. is pictured with the oldest model still in existence, which dates back to 1903 and which he purchased in 2012 for $264,000 US. He is Henry Ford's great-grandson. Under the back seat of the model was a 1,645cc flat twin engine, along with a 2-speed transmission and chain drive. 11. Rolls-Royce 1904. Henry Royce, an engineer, created his first automobile in 1904, a month before he met Charles Rolls, a wealthy aristocracy, by happenstance. After witnessing the Royce in action, the latter told its creator that he would buy any car that Royce produced as long as it also bore his name. Although Rolls-Royce Limited wouldn't be established until 1906, the first Rolls-Royce was ready by December 1904. The original automobile had a 1,809cc 2-cylinder engine. But by the end of 1906, Rolls-Royce had already produced a vehicle with an 8-cylinder engine. 12. Rover 1904. In 1885, Rover invented the safety bicycle, which served as the current pushbike's model. Motorcycles followed in 1902, and Rover produced its first automobile, the 2-seater Rover 8. In 1904, the 1,327cc single-cylinder engine that powered the 8, which remained in production right up until 1912, produced 8 horsepower at 900 revolutions per minute, but it reached its red line at 1,500. This is where your Range Rover Evoque eventually began. 13. Skoda, Lauren and Clement 1905. Lauren and Clement, a business that started off creating bicycles in 1895, switched to making motorcycles in 1899, and then produced its first automobile in 1905, is where Skoda got its start. The first automobile was called the Voiturette, and it had a 1,005cc V-twin engine that produced 7 horsepower. There were just 55 produced before the 9 horsepower, 1,399cc Voiturette V took over in 1906. 14. Lancia 1907. It's tragic that Lancia, once among the most inventive automakers' history, is now all but gone. In November 1906, Vincenzo Lancia established his own business with the goal of producing racing and sports automobiles. In February 1907, as his first car was prepared for testing, the factory burned down, destroying it along with the car, the blueprints, and Lancia's tools. 7 months later, Lancia had 100 specimens of the Type 51, each powered by a 2,544cc 4-cylinder engine, constructed from the ground up. 15. Audi 1910. Originally created in 1904 under his own name, August Horch's first automobile firm later changed its name to Audi in 1910 due to disagreements with other board members. The Type A, which featured a 2,612cc 4-cylinder engine, was the company's debut model. There were just 140 produced before the Type B arrived in 1911. 16. Alfa Romeo 1910. Anonima Lombarda Fabbrica Automobili, which was established in 1910, realized that it truly needed a catchier moniker. Alfa was the outcome. The company was renamed Alfa Romeo in 1918 after Nicola Romeo took it in 1915, and its first vehicle was the Torpedo 2030. Was manufactured until 1914. 17. Morgan 1910. Malvern's Harry Morgan started a business where he sold and fixed cars. He had constructed his own car by 1909 for his own use, and a year later he began mass-producing his 3-wheeler. The original automobiles had only 1 seat, but as single-seaters were never going to be particularly popular. By 1911, Morgan's 3-wheeler had 2 or 4 seats. A 961cc Jap V twin engine provided power. 16. Chevrolet 1913. Despite starting his business in 1911, Louis Chevrolet didn't sell his first automobile until 1913. The Chevrolet Type C, which made its debut at the New York Auto Show that year, was quite spectacular thanks to its 6-cylinder engine and 3-speed transmission. However, it was more expensive than competitors, so Chevrolet swiftly created a 4-cylinder model to compete. 17. Dodge 1914. Prior to transitioning to the supply of auto parts in 1903, John and Horace Dodge established their business in 1901 to manufacture bicycle components. Very fast, Ford accounted for nearly all of their output. As more and more parts were being produced by Ford internally, they made the decision to launch their own automobile in 1914. Dodge's Automobile, which was only available as a 5-seat tourer, had a 35 horsepower 3,480cc 4-cylinder engine and a 3-speed transmission. More than 70,000 Dodge cars were produced in that year, making it the 4th most popular car manufacturer in America. 18. Aston Martin 1915. Coal Scuttle, the original Aston Martin, was created in 1915. 3 other prototype automobiles, including one dubbed Bunny, were constructed after Coal Scuttle and the Great War, but none of these vehicles exist today. Aston Martin was prepared to begin selling automobiles by 1921, and the company's first production model had a 1,496cc 4-cylinder engine. Only 69 were produced before the business failed, and not for the first time. The Aston Martin Heritage Trust presently owns chassis number 3, the oldest surviving Aston Martin. 19. Mitsubishi 1917. Despite being established in 1870 as a shipping company, Mitsubishi didn't create its first automobile until 1917. Only 22 of these behemoths, each powered by a 2,765cc 4-cylinder engine, were produced. The Mitsubishi Model A, a 7-seater with a front-mounted 35 horsepower engine driving the rear wheels and a top speed of 96 kilometers per hour, was based on the Fiat Tipo 3. 20. Bentley 1919. William owned before the First World War. Bentley and his brother Horace sold automobiles, but in 1919 they founded Bentley Motors to produce and market sporty automobiles for the wealthy. Bentley's first vehicle, which was ready for delivery in 1921, had 5 Le Mans 24 hours victories by the time it was introduced in 1930. The 3-liter was Bentley's first model, and 1,622 of them were made between 1921 and 1929. It had a 2,996cc 4-cylinder engine with 4 valves per cylinder in each one. 21. Citroën 1919. Although André Citroën didn't build his first car until 1919, he had already made the decision to enter the automobile industry as early as 1916. Throughout World War I, his firm produced munitions. Citroën debuted his Type A in March 1919, only 4 months after World War I came to an end, and it had a 1,327cc 4-cylinder engine with a top speed of 64 kilometers per hour. There had been manufactured more than 24,000 Type A by the time production ceased in 1921. 22. Jaguar Swallow Sidecars 1922. Swallow Sidecars, or SS, the company that would later become Jaguar, was founded in 1922 to produce bodies for a variety of small cars, including Austin, Singer, and Walsall. After World War II, the SS moniker was never going to be used to successfully market automobiles, which is why Jaguar was chosen instead. In 1935, this was initially applied as a model name. 23. MG 1923. Morris Motors was established in 1913 by William Morris, and Morris Garages followed 10 years later. The Morris Garages Chummy, a sporty 2-seater based on the Morris Cowley, is thought to have been MG's first automobile. Although the trademark wasn't officially registered until the following year, the initial automobiles had both Morris and MG badges, and the first MG advertisements appeared in 1923. 24. Triumph 1923. Triumph, a Coventry-based manufacturer, began selling bicycles in 1885, followed by motorcycles in 1902, and then its first vehicle in 1923. This came about as a result of Triumph purchasing the Dawson Car Company. The 1.4-liter 1020 had served as Triumph's initial model. Around 2,500 of these 2-seater steel-bodied tours were produced up to 1926, though a sports model with aluminum panels was also available. 25. Chrysler 1924. The struggling Maxwell Chalmers automobile firm, established in 1904, had been saved by Walter Chrysler. Following the closure of that business in 1923, Walter founded a new enterprise under his own name the following year. Walter is shown here with his very first automobile, the 70. The 3,301cc side valve straight-six engine in the 70 was fitted with aluminum pistons, full pressure lubrication, and an oil filter, all of which were very novel features. Why else would 32,000 be sold in the first year? 26. Skoda 1925. Similar to Lauren and Clement, Skoda was founded in 1895 with the primary goal of producing firearms. However, it quickly expanded to include the manufacture of locomotives, bridges, power plants, ships, and other items. Steam vehicles and big road tractors were first produced in 1919, but in 1925 Skoda merged with Lauren and Clement to begin producing cars. The Type 110, a development development of L and case types 100 and 105 served as the company's debut model. It was powered by a 1,791cc four-cylinder water-cooled engine. 27. Pontiac 1926, Chevrolet and Cadillac were General Motors entry-level and luxury models respectively in the 1920s. There was also Oldsmobile, which was more comparable to Cadillac than Chevrolet. However, a company that sold reasonably priced, high-quality automobiles was required. In order to close this gap, Pontiac was established in 1926. Its debut model was a 3.1-liter automobile offered in two-door sedan or coupe configurations, both costing $825. With nearly 77,000 units sold in its first year, the vehicle was a huge success. 28. BMW 1927. In 1916, BMW began producing aviation engines. In 1923, it introduced its first motorbike, and in 1927, it unveiled the Dixie 315, the company's first automobile. It was a license-built Austin 7 with hardly any modifications. Other than the steering wheel switching from the right to the left, the two were nearly identical. 29. Volvo 1927. In 1927, Assar Gabrielson and Gustav Larsson established Volvo, which produced its first automobile, the OV4's 1,940cc four-cylinder engine, which was only available as an open tour and had a peak power output of just 28 horsepower at 800 revolutions per minute. Provided power. Only 8 airbags were included as standard equipment at this time, along with 31 dashboard warning lights and 14 buzzers, although Volvo quickly improved. 30. Nissan 1931. The Kaishinsha Motor Car Works was the company's original name until it was changed to DAT Motor Car Co. in 1925 and then back to Nissan in 1934. However, up until 1986, when Nissan was chosen as the company's global name, many of the company's products were marketed as Datsuns. Despite the fact that vehicles have been produced in small quantities since 1914, the first Datsun wasn't introduced until 1931. The Type 10 was an exact replica of the Austin 7, starting out with a 495cc four-cylinder engine that was eventually increased to 747cc, matching the Austin engine's displacement. 31. Toyota 1936. Toyota's first automobile debuted in 1936 and featured a 3.4-liter six-cylinder engine. 1,404 examples were produced. The first domestically produced car for the Japanese market, which made its public debut at a Tokyo exhibition along with a cabriolet version, played a part in getting the Japanese government to approve the Toyota Automatic Loom Works request to build cars. This allowed Toyota to be founded and its first auto factories to be built right away. 32. Jeep Willys 1941. Where can I even begin with this one? Willys and Ford produced the first Jeeps in 1941, followed subsequently by the French firms Hotchkiss and Delahaye. A 3-speed manual transmission connected the 2.2-liter four-cylinder engine's power to all 4 wheels. The Jeep would eventually turn into a pillar of Willys' product Overland's line, inspiring the company to produce the station wagon, truck, and Jeepster. 33. Jaguar 1945. Incorporated in March 1945, Jaguar emerged from the ashes of SS cars. Jaguar was unable to create a new vehicle because to the 6 years of hostilities, so it simply restarted production of the SS 2.5-liter sedan. This 2,664cc car would have to keep Jaguar going until the MKV showed up in 1948 along with a 3.5-liter sedan. 34. Volkswagen 1945. Hitler's KDF wagon was initially constructed in 1936, but the first vehicles were not produced until 1945. The Type 1 was made available to many British firms when the British Army freed the VW facility in Wolfsburg, but each of them rejected it on the grounds that it would never be a commercial success. The air-cooled sedan, which was unofficially known as the Volkswagen Beetle, went on to become the most successful automobile in history, with more than 21 million units produced by the time manufacture ceased in 2003. 35. Ferrari 1947. Enzo Ferrari was prohibited from producing any automobiles bearing his own name for 7 years after severing relations with Alfa Romeo, where he had served as the company's competition manager. So, in 1940, he produced his first automobiles under the Auto Avio brand, but after just 2 were produced, the company's focus shifted to the production of machine tools and ball bearings for the war effort. The Tipo 125, the first Ferrari, debuted in 1947 and featured a 1,498cc V12 with 118 horsepower. Ferrari would compete in their maiden Grand Prix the following year with this engine in supercharged version. 36. Maserati 1947. 5 of the 6 Maserati brothers, Carlo, Bindo, Alfieri, Eder, and Ernesto, devoted their entire life to automobiles and racing. In 1926, they established their own automaker, but their primary focus was on racing automobiles. It wasn't until 1947 that the Tipo A6 with a 1,488cc straight-six engine made its debut. A 2.0-liter variant and numerous special bodied vehicles would follow. 37. Jaguar MKV 1948. So, this is Jaguar's third initial vehicle. The company's first vehicle was produced when Jaguar was still known as Swallow Sidecars, and the second vehicle was merely an SS vehicle that was marketed as a Jaguar. This vehicle was the first Jaguar vehicle that wasn't initially an SS. The same 2,664cc or 3,485cc straight-six engines were available for the MKV in saloon or drawfed configurations. The MKVII replaced the MKVI until 1951. There was no MKVI before then, most likely because Bentley was selling its own MKVI at the time. 38. Land Rover 1948. Land Rover, which is now owned by Tata, was originally a spin-off of the Rover Car Company, which saw a need in the market for a vehicle that could handle rough terrain and intended to grow exports. The end product was the 1.6-liter gasoline-powered Series 1 of 1948. Within 3 months of the start of production in July 1948, Land Rover had dealers in an astounding 68 different nations. 39. Porsche 1948. After creating the VW Beetle before World War II, Ferdinand Porsche established a design and engineering company in 1931, but he wouldn't construct his own automobile until 1948. The 356 was Porsche's first automobile, and here is Ferdinand Porsche driving it alongside his son, who is confusingly also named Ferdinand Porsche. The 356 was essentially a Beetle with a new body and a 1,131cc engine. 40. Jeep 1953. The Jeep was manufactured by Willys up until 1953 when it was absorbed by Kaiser Motors and afterwards renamed Kaiser Jeep. Although a modernized wartime Jeep was initially offered, the Wagoneer station wagon, which had a 3,770cc six-cylinder engine and could be specified with either rear or four-wheel drive, was the major news. 41. Suzuki 1955. Suzuki originally produced motorbikes, but in 1955 it switched to producing tiny trucks and automobiles under the Suzulite brand, the first ever K vehicle. The Suzuki four-wheel car first appeared as a two-door sedan, van, or pickup with a 360cc two-cylinder two-stroke engine powering the front wheels. These early attempts at four-wheeler manufacture, however, were really only commercial vehicles because there were so few sedans built. 42. Subaru 1958. This was Subaru's first passenger car, debuting in 1958, a far cry from the turbocharged four-wheel drive rally monsters of the 1990s. It was available as a two-door sedan, estate, or convertible and featured a 356cc two-cylinder engine positioned at the rear. Amazingly, the 360 became popular in the US, at least until news reports revealed how poorly the Subaru performed in a head-on collision with a modern US automobile. 43. Mazda 1960. In 1920, Mazda was founded as Toyo Kagyo, a manufacturer of machine tools. 4 decades later, the business produced its first automobile, the R360, directly competing with rivals from Subaru and Suzuki. The R360, a 4-seater, was first only available as a 2-door coupe, but a convertible model was later added. The 356cc V-twin engine had a hearty 16 horsepower, which was enough to propel its occupants to an exhilarating 84 kilometers per hour. 44. Honda 1963. It was the T360 pickup, Soichiro Honda's first four-wheeled creation, that he produced in 1963. However, he had begun his career as a mechanic in 1937 before branching out into the supply of components, motorized bicycles, motors, and motorcycles. By 1959, Honda was the biggest motorcycle producer in the world. Honda introduced its first vehicle, the S500 Roadster, with a 531cc four-cylinder engine 2 months after the T360 went on sale. Before the S600 replaced them, Honda produced 1,363 of them in a single year. 45. Lamborghini, 1963. Lamborghini had a bit of a rough start because its initial attempt to build a road-going production automobile was so poorly regarded that it had to start over and come up with something new. The 350 GTV, the first prototype, was unveiled in 1963 and had a front-mounted 3.5-liter V12 with 365 horsepower. 46. Lamborghini, 1964. Following the 350 GTV's dismal reception, Lamborghini made a second attempt to design a two-seat Grand Tourer with a V12 in the nose. The result was the 350 GT, which debuted in 1964 and was powered by the same V12 as the Miura. The Miura's engine had a 4.0-liter unit, whilst the 350 GT's V12 had a 3.5-liter displacement. 120 units of the 350 GT were built from 1954 to 1966. 47. Kia, 1974. It's astounding to imagine that Kia is one of the country's newest popular automakers when you consider all that it has accomplished. After being established in 1944 as Kyungsung Precision Industry, Kia began producing Mazda trucks in 1962 and Honda motorcycles under license in 1957. However, Kia didn't produce its first automobile until 1974. Even this was a Mazda made with permission. A 1.0-liter engine was installed and the vehicle was produced under the name Brisa until 1981. 48. Hyundai, 1975. In 1947, Hyundai was established as a construction business. 20 years later, it began to manufacture various Ford vehicles and trucks under license. In 1975, Hyundai unveiled their first automobile after hiring George Turnbull, a British national who had previously worked for British Leyland. The Pony was a rear-wheel drive sedan that resembled a hatchback and was equipped with running gear and engines from Mitsubishi. The Giorgetto Giugiaro designed Hyundai Pony was straightforward, practical, and reasonably priced, exactly what the market needed at the time. 49. Acura, 1986. In 1986, Honda introduced its upscale Acura brand in response to import restrictions imposed by the U.S. government. Honda was only permitted to import a certain number of vehicles, so it concentrated on its priciest models and added an Acura logo to make them seem more rare. Though fewer duped, the Integran Legend, which were the first models, were sold through 60 dealerships across the U.S. 50. Infiniti, 1989. The Infiniti brand was only able to provide one model when it first debuted in an effort to elevate Nissan in the U.S. The Q45 was a luxurious sedan powered by a 4,498cc, 288-horsepower Nissan President V8. Within a year of its 1989 launch, the Q45 could be specified with hydraulically controlled active suspension and four-wheel steering. 51. Lexus, 1989. Toyota launched a new brand in 1989 when it wanted to climb upmarket in the U.S., revolutionizing the luxury market. The Lexus LS 400 wasn't much fun to drive, but for those looking for a sumptuous large sedan, it was a world away from the typical offerings from brands like Cadillac, Mercedes, and Jaguar. It was uncannily smooth, extraordinarily well-equipped, and supremely reliable. 52. McLaren, 1992. The original McLarens were M6 race vehicles created by Trojan in the late 1960s. Some of these were turned into street vehicles, but it wasn't until 1985, when Ron Dennis founded a new business to produce both street and race cars, that the McLaren we know today was formed. The astonishing F1 of 1992, which later broke the production car speed record with a monstrous 386 kph, was the first output of McLaren's labor. 53. Tesla, 2008. Even Tesla may not have realized the significance of its debut vehicle, the Tesla Roadster, to not only Elon Musk's own business but the larger industry as a whole. This Lotus Elise-based sports car completely disproved popular perceptions about electric automobiles with amazing performance, accelerating from 0 to 96 kilometers per hour in less than 4 seconds. It was also the first mainstream electric car with a reasonable range. Tesla didn't turn around, and ever since, the rest of the industry has been lagging behind. The final automaker carmaker in this tale may also be one of the most significant in terms of setting the world on the path to electrification. Hey, thank you for staying to the end of this video. Please subscribe to this channel so that we can grow this channel. Thank you for watching this video produced by the clever producer Mr. Wonderful. We will publish these videos every single day. Please subscribe to this channel to receive many more videos about the globe. This is Around the Globe.